All right, how's it going, guys? Laughing Lasagna here. We're doing our first ever somewhat game review idea that I'm trying to figure out how to do this without sounding too weird. So we're trying this right here, guys, and I hope you guys enjoy my review of my collection of horror games. Now, I put in the horror games into three different selections, which I have my notes for. The notes are my horror categories I have made up so far has been your first person shooters, which is your FPS games, and then you have your supernatural slash psychological horror games, and then you also have your run and hide or survival games. Now, the reason I have only those three because I only have those three in my library myself. I started playing horror games when I was younger. I got my first taste of Doom when I was young, but I really not got into the games until I was in my early 20s, late 20s. And part of the one of the original games I really got into was Doom. Doom came out back in when I was a little guy, but this came out for on the PC in the '95. And it was one of the original horror games that everybody got into. It wasn't really shown as like a revolutionary game until it was, in a sense. It was a huge hit for everybody. And yes, I'm categorizing this as a horror game. It is a first person shooter horror game because, again, the screen is in first person shooter mode. Um, so I have here my copy for the SNES, and then I have my N64 and 32X. Now I have these cartridges of these right here because they are part of my original collection that I wanted to get myself into. And then the games that came alongside with that as well, that was in the same genre as a Doom game, was again Quake and Quake 2. Those came out on the PC as well as on the consoles. And so Quake and Doom were kind of the same idea in my book, where Quake started out as a just a short story in a sense, but it had the blood and guts and the monsters and the sounds that got the game going in a sense of making a new horror game title. A lot of games that came out after that steered more away from what the horror aspect was and create their own genre, such as like you had your Wolfenstein games and stuff like that. That was more of taking what Doom had created and making their own. I think Wolfenstein came out before that, but you know, is what it is. But Doom kind of started the the horror aspect in my book. For me, it created the atmosphere, it created the blood and guts, the taking over evil in a sense by force, and it really got me going. And later on, came out your Doom 3. I have here the collector's edition, which has Doom 3 and Doom 3 Resurrection. Doom 3 turned into a psychological horror game, but it was still in the FPS genre. They mixed a little bit of the psychological horror to make it into a standout alone game that was supposed to be bringing back Doom itself. In my book, it was one of the actual better of the Dooms that was supposed to be coming out, and it was a great game for all to enjoy, including those who enjoyed the psychological horror games. You had the whisper in your ears. You had the new demons that were able to fight. You had the screams, the terror, the gore. Everything that Doom had was in this game, plus more, and a great storyline it had as well. And then in 2016, they came out with Doom again, where Doom again turned into just a first-person shooter horror game. And in my book, it is a good story still. It kind of came back away from what Doom had originally had been, but is now its own series. I do have a Doom Eternal as well. I don't have a copy of it, but I did pick up another copy of the Doom Slayers collection, which has your Doom 1 and 2 as well on there as well. And it's a good addition to your collection if you're a big collector myself. I have collections of a lot of horror games because it's I enjoy the rush. Why do people enjoy the rush of horror games? It is like a roller coaster in my book, like a horror movie. The jump scares, the element of surprise is what gets people to get that rush. You know, people enjoy certain things in life that give them that rush. For me, it's horror games and horror movies that gives you a good rush. Um, and so I think that with that, you know, people have always thrived and enjoyed a good horror game. Um, so speaking of like certain horror games, another horror game that I got myself into was trying to get into fighting games that were based on movies. The game that I have that's based on a movie is The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing, the original Xbox. If you have not owned a copy of this, I would recommend it to anybody. I believe from what I have played before, it's been a while since I played this game, but from what I have played before, this game was in between the first original movie and then the new movie that came out on The Thing. Very good game. It is more of a it's not a first person shooter. It is a basically survival horror game in a sense. So basically, we're putting this in its own category with another game I'm pulling up. But it is a survival horror game, and it plays just like the original movie, where basically the thing that kills the monsters or the aliens better was the flamethrower or flames of some sort. And it's a very good game. Um, a prized possession of those who enjoy the good horror original horror genre. And I think John Carpenter himself enjoyed this. You know, it's a great story. It matches up with the rest of the series, and definitely a uh, big collection part of what I have. So we're gonna go back to the psychological horror stuff, and two of the games I'm gonna bring up next are games that I've never really got into, but I have them as part of my collection in case I do get a chance to play them. One of them is the Outlast Trinity. Now, the reason why I have this is again, I enjoy the rush, I enjoy the scare, I enjoy the fright, I enjoy ability to go against the evil. This game you can't, but I do still enjoy the nice rush. This is why I have the category of run and hide slash survivor or survival. It's you can't fight, which is kind of disappointing, but it is a great title for those who are looking for that rush. I've not actually played all the way through. I've tried playing it the first one all the way through, and I've gotten only about an eighth of the way in the game, and I had to put it down because it gave me actual terrors because it was so realistic. And the thing is, this is if you would, a realistic horror game because the things that gets under my skin in a sense, you know, and I think did that for a lot of people as well. So this is under its own category with The Thing as well because it's psychological as well as the gore factor is huge. It's much an adult game, and I like that because we didn't have that a lot in the 90s, in the early 2000s for horror games. I've been trying to find horror games that are like that, and it's very hard to find games like this. Phantasmagoria is one of them that I enjoyed watching people play because it's such an intense game and very well liked game. A lot of games like Resident Evil, Silent Hill have brought a different view of horror than most games. But Resident Evil, for me, the original three games weren't that great for myself, and I don't really consider them horror games. 'Cause I think for me, part of it is because I've kind of destroyed that little bit of horror where it's like, you know, it's the I enjoy the quality, you know, of the monster look. Now, Nemesis was a great addition to the Resident Evil series, but it came to me a little too late because I never got into Resident Evil until after I started playing some of these hardcore horror titles, which I'll get to in a minute. So Resident Evil was not really my thing. Silent Hill never got into my thing until later on in life because Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3, I believe it was, got into more of the puzzles and a lot of the survival horror that Resident Evil got into. So you had to manage your inventory and all that thing as well. I never really got into that until again later in life, and so I have respect for Resident Evil 1 and Silent Hill, but I do not have a collection of them yet because again I never really got into them, and I never really got into the backstory of them. If you have some comments for that as well for me, let me know in the comments below what you guys would categorize Silent Hill and Resident Evil. You can categorize them as a FPS or a survival horror, or just your psychological. Another game that kind of I believe is inspired by Resident Evil is The Evil Within 1 and 2. I've only played number 1 a little bit, and again, it's one of those games where I would get into and then I had to put down because it's frustrating, because it's kind of like the games that were based on like the Silent Hill viewpoints or Silent Hill gameplay, where it's again a lot of the trying to find certain things in the certain areas. So it's a survival horror slash like psychological type of game, and I got into it, but not too much. I want to get back into it so I can actually get to start understanding why people enjoy this game so much. But it had a way too much of a Silent Hill vibe for me, and again, Silent Hill has a lot of the puzzles. I'm not very good at puzzle games. I'm not good at all. I don't think that having a horror game that puts in a puzzle that takes like for me 5-10 minutes is for me worth it, because I enjoy the rush. I enjoy the thrill of going on that roller coaster ride, and I don't want to be on a plateau for so long and then I forget what I'm doing. I've been playing Resident Evil 7 for here and there on my Twitch stream, and it's just been the puzzles is what stops me, and I'm like, I can't stop here. I gotta make it worthwhile. So yeah, I have a playthrough. I ain't that smart with comes to puzzle games at all. I mean, I don't play a lot of puzzle games to begin with, so it's re-exercising my brain to get into the type of games. I have been requesting me to play Amnesia to make a review about that too, and I'm looking forward to doing that as well. But Amnesia is gonna be one of those games where it's a picture game. It's a picture slash it's a puzzle. It's a psychological. Amnesia is a big one for that. So speaking of different games that I've gotten into because of the psychological and the content, was the Suffering. I have both Sufferings for the original Xbox. It is a hidden gem. Not many people have actually got into it so far that I've seen. The Suffering and then the Suffering Ties That Bind. It is a very dark horror game. It's a great storyline, but not many people have known about it, and I've seen only a few people actually say, hey, I enjoyed this game because of how dark it is, how gritty it is, how down to earth the horror is. And I think that this took a chapter out of the Silent Hill book and Doom book, because the gameplay has kind of taken controls as Silent Hill and the original Silent Hill and the original Resident Evil, but also had the FPS horror gameplay like Doom had, Doom 3 had at least. And so for those who are looking for a good psychological horror game, as well as a decisions that you make in the game as well, change the gameplay, which is very good, very, very, very cool. So a big suggestion for you guys is check out your nearest store, look for the Suffering and the Suffering That Ties That Bind, and check it out. Very good horror game. Another psychological horror game that it plays like Doom is Condemned, Criminal Origins, and then Condemned 2, Bloodshed. I enjoyed number 1 a lot. Number 2 was kind of a hit or miss for me, really, but I do enjoy the content they had and a little bit of the psychological horror that it brought out. Survival is key in this game. It is not meant for the weak stomach either. A lot of adult content in there, a lot of dark, sinister things in the background as well. So, yeah, but it's definitely a game to check out to play by yourself in the middle of the night. It's a very, very good game. You survive by grabbing weapons and stuff, and you survive by solving the crime. So there are some puzzles in it, but it's not like your Silent Hill puzzles in a sense. I put that in his own separate little category, where Silent Hill puzzles is not like these kind of puzzles. Silent Hill puzzles is like minuscule. Silent Hill games is a little more. The puzzles are more involved than this. This is minuscule with the puzzles compared to Silent Hill. That I meant to say. Sorry about that. But then we go to games that are the supernatural horror games, which I only have like one game that I can consider is a supernatural horror game, and I believe you all know what it is. and I'm pretty sure you all have played this before, is going to be Fear. I have all the Fear games: Fear 1, Fear 2, Fear 3, and then the Fear Files. This is more of a DLC game in a sense, but with extra maps is all it was. Fear Files is its own game by itself, but Fear 1 and 2 and 3 is a paranormal horror game that it plays like Doom, where in a sense of the shooting, the gore, constant action in a sense, and it also had its own twist of things. Um, so it's under psychological horror and supernatural horror, because supernatural horror is like games that deal with the supernatural, like demons or stuff like that, and then putting them into the game, kind of like Doom did, whereas Doom was more of the supernatural horror slash FPS shooter. This is the same idea, a little more better graphics in a sense. You can slow down time in this game. It was pretty cool. Bullet time is what they call it, and it had a very intriguing and also very horrifying backstory of the main characters as well. And so I would definitely say Fear 1 is definitely one to pick up and try. Fear 2 and 3, I would say, is if you want to get more involved in the story, because it does get pretty dark really fast. Check it out, but at your own accord. Don't look at me going, "You'd recommend this to me." No, I'm not recommending these games to anybody. I'm recommending that for those who are looking for a certain type of horror game, this is what you're looking into getting. If ghosts and spirits and stuff is not your thing, don't pick up Fear. The next game that I really got into, and this is the last on the list that I got into, this is a horror game that is your first. It's not a first person shooter. It's more of a like the Gears of War over the shoulder looking, but it is more of the how would you put it? More like a survival horror, but it's the atmosphere horror. It's psychological stuff. You know, something when you hear the whispers in your head, when you hear the vents moving, when you hear things breathing behind you, what is it? You know, and Fear 1 and 2, or sorry, Dead Space is the game I'm talking about right here. Dead Space 1 and 2 are my favorite games for the series. Dead Space 3 is more of an action shooter. And I've not played Dead Space Extraction yet, but I'm gonna give it a shot and see what it's like. But Fear 1 or Dead Space 1 and 2 are the games that got me into the Dead Space franchise hardcore. And for those who are into the jump scares, the creep, you know, the creepy atmosphere, the stuff that makes you just get shivers. You hear a whisper behind you, or you hear things crawling in the walls next to you. It's a great game for that. Number 2 has more of the jump scares, whereas number 1 has more of just the psychological things you hear in your headset. You should definitely play it with your headset on for most of these games. You get the entire atmospheric horror that the artist is trying to portray. A lot of horror games are basically just, for me, art. They're pieces of art that the artist is trying to just display, you know, something that will cause a rush as well as get you into another mode instead of like all the people who play Call of Duty or whatever. You know, it's like that's a certain mode. You know, this mode is survive, look for exit. How much do I have to spill blood in order to get to that end of the level? This is Doom. Very great games. And I would like to get into doing game reviews as well soon. And it won't be just horror games. I have plenty of other games. Like Fallout. I like to review about Fallout, but this is basically the first video showing some of the horror games I have in my collection. This is actually most of my horror games in my collection. And if you want reviews of these certain games, I'll be doing them real soon. And I hope that you've enjoyed this. Most of my videos are a little more funnier, but this is horror games. You gotta be a little more horrific and quiet and weird. And I'm just trying. I'm trying new things. So you like this, leave a like, subscribe, push the bell button, get notified whenever I go live next time or a new video. Make sure you share with your friends to know what's going on. Yeah, so I try to do a Friday horror night stream on my Twitch. If you want to check it out, it's Laughing Lasagna at Twitch. And yeah, hope to see you guys there. And again, let me know if you want to see more like this. Comment below, like, subscribe, and let's continue to grow this community, guys. Have a good rest of your week. Have a blessed, awesome Wednesday, or whatever this is. I'm tired. I'll see you guys later. Bye.